Friends, good evening to all of you. May I request Dr. Mashelkar, Shri Harsh Halatkar, and Dr. Ajit Ranade to please come on the dais. Mitra, namaskar. I am Abhay Vaidya, Director, Pune International Center. We wish to welcome all of you to this unusually titled book, Exprovement, Exponential Improvement Through Converging Parallels by Harsh Halatkar and Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar. We are also delighted to have with us Dr. Ajit Ranade, Vice Chancellor, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, as the chair for today's session. Dr. Ranade is also a trustee at the PIC. Exprovement, as the title says, is about exponential improvement through converging parallels. It is about achieving exponential results through creative and innovative thinking. Among the many illuminating examples, the book narrates the story of how during the 2008 Monaco Grand Prix Formula One race, a tire puncture did not prevent the racing driver Lewis Hamilton from winning the race. It took just a 9 seconds pit stop to fix the puncture and rejig the strategy. Just 9 seconds. In an altogether different area, this pit stop experience also helped innovate the toothpaste production line at GlaxoSmithKline with a 60% reduction in changeover time and production of additional 20 million tubes of toothpaste. This is the power of Exponent, which Shri Harsh Halatkar and Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar speak of. They bring to us many such insightful examples of experiment and strategies to develop the experiment mindset. Harsh is the founder of Instill Motion, an innovation lab and consulting firm which has worked with several Fortune 500 companies to address business challenges through experiment. He is trained in innovation design from the Royal College of Art, innovation engineering from the Imperial College London, and innovation entrepreneurship from the Imperial College Business School. He is a fellow of Design London and through Instill Motion Labs has developed several novel innovations which have been patented. Thank you for being with us today, Harsh. Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar, Padma Vibhushan and President, Pune International Center, is indeed well known to the entire nation as an indefatigable optimist. Dr. Mashelkar has the rare honor of being a Fellow of the Royal Society. He is the former Director General of the Council of Indian Scientific and Industrial Research and has 45 honorary doctorates from universities across the world. Dr. Mashelkar is passionate about innovation and social innovation, which is a focus area at the PIC. His previous books include From Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting, Reinventing India, and Timeless Inspirator, Reinventing Gandhi. Dr. Ajit Ranade, the chair for today's event, is a distinguished economist and Vice Chancellor, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics. He is an alumnus of Brown University, IIM Ahmedabad, IIT Mumbai, and was formerly Chief Economist with the Aditya Birla Group. We are grateful to you, sir, for being here and chairing this session. We will first have the opening remarks by Dr. Ranade, followed by the ceremonial release of the book, and then a brief presentation by the authors, leading to a 20-minute conversation between Dr. Ranade, Harsh, and Dr. Mashelkar. This would be followed by a Q&A segment, and you are welcome to ask questions. May I now hand over the floor to Dr. Ranade.
Thank you very much, Abhay. And let me join Abhay and on behalf of Pune International Center and Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you at this first maiden book launch of a book by Mr. Harsh Haladkar. I think it's your first book, I think? It is. It is his first book. And another author, you might have heard of his name, Mr. Raghunath Mashelkar. So I'm, of course, delighted and honored to be chair of the event today. It feels like a very, क्या बोलते हैं, very घर का मामला. It's among friends, and it's an extra delight. So let me begin by quoting a number. We have among us a young gentleman who is an avid cricket fan. I don't know how many of you know that the gentleman on the stage with a little less hair than the other two, he is an avid cricket fan. So before I came to the stage, I asked him, how many cricketing centuries, test centuries, did Mr. Sunil Gavaskar hit? Anybody know the answer in the audience without looking at Google? No, not. 42 is the answer to the universal question, which is the Hitchhiker's Guide to. That's right, Mr. Borde with an illustrious last name. The answer is 34. 34, and that time it was a very big deal because he overtook Bradman. This book, Exprovement, is book number 34 for Mr. Ramesh Mashelkar. So you've overtaken Bradman and you're in the Sunil Gavaskar category. Today is also Sachin Tendulkar's birthday, so we wish you the next benchmark, next milestone or next record to cross, and I hope we can celebrate it here. So 34th century for Mr. Ramesh Mashelkar. I could go on, but it's not fair for me, even though I have privilege of being the chair of the session, to steal the thunder from the authors. So I can only do one thing. I'd like to read from my own perception of the book. I had privy to an early sort of print, so I was able to go through the book, and I want to read what I thought were my impressions. But before I do that, Exprovement, trust Mr. Mashelkar and Harsh, now you have to get used to this, always comes out with this innovative, quote-unquote innovative ways to coin new words. I remember leapfrogging. Nobody used it as a verb till then. I think leapfrogging or pole vaulting. So similarly, exprovement, I think, is a new word. So people will wonder, what is the difference between exprovement and improvement? So I'll leave it to the authors to tell you, but clearly there is something they have in mind between these two. And when it comes to innovation, now just for a couple of minutes, bear with me as an economist. Why is innovation important? Is because that's the only sustainable source of economic growth and expansion of prosperity. The other big, as economists, I can tell you, they say demography is destiny. So India has now become the most populous country in the world, and demography is indeed a huge determinant of our economic activity and expansion and prosperity. But that by itself will not be enough, because there are various challenges. Demography can both be an advantage but can also be a burden with the possible. And the way out of that, the other big source of growth is innovation. So unless you constantly innovate, you cannot keep pushing the economic frontiers. I mean, cannot keep improving the lives of the people and so on. So therefore, it's demography and its attendant parameters, but it's also innovation, innovation is about pushing, what should I say? It's kind of pushing boundaries, doing things which were not imaginable or perhaps not thought of. So many things. I mean, just to convince you that this indeed is important, I'll give you an example of innovation which happened in India in what is called the sachet revolution. Sachet revolution. Example: you have this. There was a phase when there was a construction boom in India. Construction of commercial real estate, residential real estate, factories, highways. So all these workers toiling at those construction sites. Now these people come from very rough backgrounds and they want to have their, enjoy their little lunch under the hot sun. But a lot of them like to have pickle. So until the sachet revolution came along, there was no way of thinking of how do you serve pickle. So this serving pickles in little sachets. So what I mean is suddenly a big market opened up. It was 1 rupee a pickle, maybe 50 paise or 2 rupees packet. But this was an unserved market, and somebody had to come with this innovation that you can actually packet it. The sachet revolution applies to pickles, applies to shampoo. It also applies to telecom. We used to think that minimum fill up SIM card has to be filled up in 500 rupees, 1000 rupees. Then you came down to sachets of 1 rupee or 5 rupees. You can top up. But what it does is it opens up a huge new market. There are people whose demand is, their willingness and ability to pay is only 5 rupees or 10 rupees. And until this innovation comes along, this market was not served, so economic activity was not expanding. The moment this happens, there are new buyers, new people paying, maybe in small doses, but new markets, so therefore GDP grows. And these are just very trivial examples, but this is why innovation is important. So I think we are going to hear much more from the authors. So I think what I will do is simply read what my impressions of the book are. That's so Raghunath Mashilkar or Ramesh Mashilkar, the die-hard champion of disruptive innovations. This is the word disrupt. If you keep a counter on his body, he must have uttered this word disruption and innovation, I think more, maybe 1,000,000 times. So the die-hard champion of disruptive innovations has written yet another delightful book with co-author Harsh Haladkar. The book is peppered with many amazing and often contemporary stories of innovation that arose not from tinkering with adjacencies, because often you have innovations that you can think of that something was being done. Now just a little bit, if you modify, this can also be used for something else. So not from merely tinkering with adjacencies, but actually from the most unexpected places. That's what this book is about. Who would have thought that a pizza box can lead to better cancer detection? A pizza box, cancer detection. Who could have thought that a baby toy leads to safer lunar landing on the moon? So their paradigm, the author's paradigm, is called Exprovement, which is not incremental progress or incremental innovations, but actually radical and exponential growth by seeking and stumbling onto the most startling connections. Their stories illustrate, so there are a lot of stories. So often theory has to be supported with innovative stories, nothing like storytelling, but there is a theory behind that. So their stories illustrate a profound insight into the pattern recognition or problem solving about an approach to innovation that only the nimblest minds can master. Mashilkar's unique contribution lies in making abstract concepts simple, like his innovative terms, and by using the most evocative metaphors. For example, he has this convex lens analogy, which I think you should read about it. I won't tell you more, but remember we used to use a convex lens to burn paper, and that's what you learned in your childhood, I believe. Just when things converge, when you bring things together, they have such much power that they can also have burning power. So his convex lens analogy is wonderfully apt, which says that parallel and apparently unconnected ideas, when they converge to a sharp focal point, when they pass through the lens, it can have unimaginable power. So a book that is both exhilarating and insightful, and of course a must read for all of you. So this is my introduction. Thank you.
We will now have the release of the book. May we have the copies of the book, please? We will now have a presentation from the authors. Harsh, could we begin with you, please? Whichever. Yeah. So, Dr. Machilkar, you could, from wherever you're comfortable.
Thank you very much, Ajit, for those wonderful words. Today is a great day, by the way, not because our book is getting published. You know whose birthday it is today? Professor Ajit Ranade. So let us Shatayushi Bhava. Let me say a few words. The way we have decided to use the 20 minutes is I will speak for 5 minutes and Harsh will speak for 15 minutes. Why we have chosen that proportion? Because that is the proportion of contribution to the book. His is the major one. Mine is a minor one. And therefore I will take minor part of the conversation with you. I think the first and foremost is the title itself, Exprovement. I must straight away say that the title was not coined by me. It was by Harsh, as a matter of fact. And the word experiment doesn't exist in English dictionary. So we have also trademarked it. Am I right? So that's the first part. The second part is experiment is exponential improvement. I'm a great believer in exponential. Exponential is not 10%. Exponential is 10x, 10 times. And I always felt that India is one who should do 10 times better but 10 times cheaper. Affordable excellence. Supremely affordable but of a very, very high quality. And our book Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting was all about that. Why do you have to jump a few feet in defense like a frog does? All right? But pole vault, the size of your pole is size of your aspiration. So keep high aspirations, be exponential, don't be incremental, has been sort of the philosophy of my life. So therefore, this sort of alignment. The second is, Ajit has already stolen the show by telling you about the convex lens. Yes, this is something I learned very early in my life. I think this is now covered, well covered in my autobiography. Many of you have heard it. How I went to a poor school because my mother could not raise 21 rupees that were required for uniform and shoes and fees and so on and so forth. And finally I ended up in a poor school, but that poor school had a rich teacher, for those of you who did not know. And one of them was Principal Bhave. And he taught us science and did not believe in chalk and talk. म्हणजे गोकाणी ओका नव्हे शोधा आणि शिका. That's what he used to sort of teach us. And one day he took us out into the sun, showed us how to find the focal length of a convex lens. He had the piece of paper, the convex lens, moved it up and down, brightest spot, paper burnt, and he turned to me, like this, if you focus, you can achieve anything in the world. That actually inspired me to be a scientist. I said, my God, the power of science. I must become a scientist, but at the same time gave me philosophy of life. But later on as I grew, I saw more meaning in it. Because sun's rays are parallel, and the property of parallel lines is that they never meet. Okay? Convex lens makes it do it. So I coined the term convex lens leadership. It's the race, the religion, the language which keeps us separate. What the country needs is a convex lens leadership which brings everyone together. Concave lens leadership takes us farther apart. And later on, I saw that many disciplines which are moving completely parallelly, not interacting with each other, we call it transdisciplinary research, etc., etc. That became sort of my forte in terms of doing. In fact, my Danckwerts Memorial Lecture in London was borderless engineering and science, how the borders are merging. So the basic philosophy, I think the point I'm trying to make is the basic philosophy of that was always with me. The other one was, I have been Sir Louis Matheson District Professor at Monash University, and I give, this is my 16th year, by the way, 15 years I've been going every April, and I give some public lectures. And one of them was always on serendipity. Because it is the serendipitous accidents which have created so many things. So like, for example, you look at radiology, you look at X-ray, you look at insulin, you look at penicillin, you look at Velcro. They have been all accidental breakthroughs. Not only that, Nobel Prizes have been won as a result of that. Whether it is PCR or whether it is fullerenes, whether it is penicillin and so on and so forth. The inventors got Nobel Prizes. And even what you normally use, aspirin for example, all right, that you take for headache, or cisplatin for cancer, etc. They were all accidental breakthroughs. So my lectures used to be, interestingly, on organizing serendipity. Now that's an oxymoron. Serendipity is an accident. How can you organize the accident? So some of these ideas were always in my sort of mind. And the other part of it was that I myself have been beneficiary of such research. For example, we had an accidental breakthrough by which we found self-healing hydrogels. That means you have a gel PCR, you have a gel PCR, you bring them together and they heal. It was accidental, okay? Then we dived deep into it, and then we found that there is what is called as a balance of hydrophilicity and hydrophobicity. Hydrophilicity is water-loving, and hydrophobicity is water-hating. And the right balance only will give you the healing. And we created a molecule called acrylyl 6-aminocaproic acid. Can you imagine? It has had breakthroughs in different, in biomineralization. That has nothing to do with stem cell differentiation. That has nothing to do with entering coatings, with Bob Langer from MIT used and claimed that the devices that they had created out of that were the best that have come out in the last 30, 40 years, basically. And it has found applications in oil well drilling, for example, and so on. They're completely different fields. So the point I'm trying to make is that I have experienced, quote unquote, this book. It is not something which is a Google literature survey and then we have put it together. In the same way, Harsh has experienced it, and he will tell you about that story. And the last point I want to make is that converging the parallels is the subtitle, right? In fact, Harsh and me coming together is itself converging the parallels. I'm 81 and he'll be turning 40. So he's half my age, by the way. Can you just imagine? Two such people with vast difference can make a difference. And there are so many other differences that we have come together. But by coming together, I thank God that we sort of came together. We have been able to create something which we think will give a new dimension to, once again, I have to add the word disruptive, game-changing innovation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is my debut book, and it's been an absolute honor, the privilege to do it with the blessings of Dr. Ajit Ranade, and of course, the twice my age co-author, Dr. R.A. Mashelkar. And what better start could one ask for? I've been really, really lucky with this. In 2010, I was in the UK, was coming back home for a holiday, and I was trying to see what's happening in the innovation world in India, and I was trying to understand more of it. I found Dr. Mashelkar on the internet. I read about him, and I thought, what do I lose in emailing him? So I found his email address, sent him an email, and he responded and agreed to meet me. I was surprised that he did. I got to Pune, got to meet him. We had spoken for about an hour and a half, and towards the end he said, the kind of work you're doing, something like this is really needed in India. And if you decide to start something like this in India, I'll back you up. And I guess that's all I needed. By the next day, I was calling a friend of mine to ship my bags back. And I started my own innovation company. And we spoke, and he kept his word of really, really backing me, really helped me through my journey. In 2018, one of the other times we met, it was... Then I first told him about how I think this process is about drawing parallels. And he immediately spoke about how similar that is to organized serendipity. And that's when we both realized that we're speaking about similar things, and we also realized our love for oxymorons. So, improvement's always defined as incremental, but we're saying exponential, so that in my opinion, is an oxymoron. We're talking about converging parallels. My company's name is an oxymoron. It's called Instill Motion. And like Dr. Mashelkar said, him and me working together is also the oxymoron. And somehow that oxymoron has made this book happen. And am I glad it did? So the book, talking about the book itself, it begins with talking about the delta. What we define the delta as is we talk about the delta being between what is and what could be. So what is something we are very, very familiar with. What could be, I mean, it's your aspiration and how far you can go. It's very possible to say, I want this 100x better. But what bridges that gap? And that's what we believe parallels can do. There are a couple of examples that I can talk about. One to begin with from my personal experience, and the others from the book. So when I was working in the UK for a bit, there was a heritage hospital there that wanted to increase its operations, but was really worried that it'll lose quality. And being a heritage hospital, they wanted to maintain quality, which is when we thought, who is it that does large quantities but also keeps great quality? We found that supermarket giants do. So we actually took a 6-member team of this heritage hospital to the back-end operations of a supermarket giant. And what they picked up from there was barcodes. And they said, hey, barcodes is what helps keep everything in place in the supermarket. And that's when the wristband that you get when you join hospitals now with a barcode on it, and so your test results and so on and so forth, were born. They were actually born for a hospital from a supermarket giant, and that was a parallel we saw. Talking about examples from the book itself, like Dr. Ajit Ranade said, pizza boxes. I don't know if many of you have seen pizza boxes with a little label on it that indicate how hot or cold the pizza is. Right? That is done by something called thermochromic ink. Now, while that was the first application or the initial application of thermochromic ink people found, there's a company called Wellways, which was able to draw a parallel on a completely different note, where they made a sticker with multiple dots of thermochromic ink, which people can paste on their breast, and after a certain while, when they peel it out, an application tells them, because of the variations in temperature, an application just at home indicates of any cancerous presence. I mean, mammogram is crazy hard for people to go through, but this makes it so much more easier and accessible, as one inspired from a pizza box. That's how wide we went with our parallels. The other is one of my favorite stories in the book. In 1989, there was a barber who was watching TV and watching news on TV, and he was watching the Exxon oil spill, which was crazy in itself in volume. What he saw while he was watching the news is that there was an otter that had died because of the oil spill, but the hair of the otter, the fur of the otter had absorbed all the oil around it. And so there's no oil just around the otter. Him being a barber, had a lot of hair clippings on the ground, swept them up, filled it in his wife's stocking, went to a pool, put oil in it, and used it to see if hair actually absorbs oil from oil spills. Next year, he had a patent on it, and even today, lots of times during oil spills, they use this technology, which was invented by a barber. And he now owns a patent on it, like I said. So that's a parallel again. It was a barber who thought about oil spills, and completely diverse in their own ways. In the 1950s, what happened was there was this medium that people used for very clay-like medium that people used to clean wallpapers for coal residues. And it started eventually, since there was reduction in usage of coal furnaces. The usage of this clay sort of material also was dying down, which is when a teacher took this material and added color to it, which is when she came up with the Play-Doh, which is actually just something to clean wallpapers with. And again, that's diversity of parallels we've been seeing, and that's how we're seeing that parallels can bridge that delta between what is and what could be. Another example in the book, in 1957, two engineers decided that wallpapers were very trendy back then, and they decided that they'll get innovative with wallpapers. So what they did is took two shower curtains, tried stitching them together at different points. What they were trying to do is do a three-dimensional wallpaper which sort of had a texture to it by stitching various points of it. That didn't really work. They thought, but we are able to get this dual-layered plastic sheet, which we should try and use elsewhere. They tried using it in greenhouses because they thought they're insulating the entire thing. Insulation worked, but there were obviously a lot better insulation materials. Until 3 years later, IBM wanted a way to package and keep safe their computers. And that gave rise to the bubble wrap, which was the same thing as a three-dimensional wallpaper. And bubble wrap, even today, as we know, is doing wonders. So, when viewed without the borders of the industry divide that we constantly do, there's this example I keep using, which is, if there's a piece of paper in front of you where the text is too small and you can't read it, there are multiple solutions to it. You can use a magnifying glass. You can probably build a mobile phone app that zooms things on the screen for you, or you can build paper that stretches. All of them solve the problem, but how do you get to the solution that you want? The reason one's able to come up and see these solutions is because of staying away from the industry divide. And that's the intent, that when you want to exprove, you draw parallels from beyond your own industry or your own context. The book is full of such anecdotes that we've seen. It has a lot of gripping chapters, and the good part is, like I said, the chapters are not related. You can read them in any order that you like. If you find one more interesting than the other. Towards the end of the book is this bonus chapter called the banyan tree analysis, which is our way of sort of putting together this whole thing. And Dr. Ajit Ranade was showing us the historical banyan tree right outside, and thought it's quite symbolic. So the process we follow is typically, and again, we're drawing a parallel with our process to the banyan tree and the process of how it grows. It starts off, the large stem spreads really wide and keeps dropping parallels, which are roots, at different points. And those parallels one day get, some of those parallels work, some don't, but the parallels that do work get so successful that they eventually become the stem of the tree, leaving the previous stem behind. And that's the banyan tree analysis in a gist. There's more about it in the book, but that's the process, and that's the parallel we use quite a bit for our own processes. And the last bit of the book that we think is has come out quite well is, we wanted to see how books can interact with the virtual world, or the physical and virtual world coming together. So in every chapter, what you will see is there are a couple of QR codes within the chapters, and when you scan those QR codes, you can either see videos or more about different products, which sort of brings together the virtual and physical world. Thank you, and I really hope you enjoy reading the book.
So, can we straight away jump? Can I straight away jump into a conversation and we'll open it up for others. So, can you tell us about it's in the book, I thought it was interesting, the football story.
Yeah.
Actually,
May I say that to persuade me that we should write a book, the first thing he sent me was the football story. And I was impressed, and that is how the book came about. So tell us.
Yeah, so we picked a story to sort of work around what we were calling the parallel within. So it talks about the Leicester City Football Club, which is literally down the drains, hadn't won matches for, I don't know, about 80 years. Um, until a new coach came. I mean, like you hear, right? Nothing succeeds like success. There are 100 different reasons why people say Leicester City did really, really well from there on. But what we found was that the coach's approach of drawing parallels or from outside the industry itself, where he was able to bring technology. But what we've seen is like the thought process behind it or the strategy behind it was very, very similar to the one of building a microprocessor. Uh, in a microprocessor, rather than constantly straining it to get more out of it, you want to optimize the usage, reduce surface area of how large this is, or keep reducing it in size and get more out of it. So that was what actually we believe helped Leicester City, where he said, "How can I save my players' energies rather than keep pushing them to do more and more and more?" And he also sort of started limiting the area that they move in, which is again like the microprocessor, reducing surface area of theirs. Yeah, so that's the parallel. That's the analogy of the.
so do you think that innovation? So these are now from the specific story to a broader kind of a conceptual question. Does innovation always improve people's lives? Does it always lead to a better standard of living?
Not necessarily, and I think everything that has a pro has its cons. Uh, I mean, yeah, every innovation will have its own problems. I mean, will create its own problems as well. I mean, they keep saying that one of the best inventions in the world is the wheel. But I mean, while I agree, it also gave us roads, which sort of I think blocked down one of nature's biggest gift to us, which is land, right? And doesn't let nature proceed there. So everything comes with its own cons, but I think by and large, yes, it should help you improve things.
That's an excellent question, as a matter of fact. We have seen ChatGPT and what havoc it is creating. All right. A drone can deliver medicines to the poor, and you've seen the drones being used for killing people. Mrs. Gandhi's assassinators, they were supposed to have rifles to protect her. They killed her. So finally, Ajit, as you and I know, it is all in the hands of people. Even the emerging exponential technologies, including AI, we know there are deep concerns of ethics, morality, and their misuse. That includes metaverse, because in fact, my Monash University talk was on metaverse or metaverse, because the customized identity in that space, if you start really believing that that's what you are, there are going to be issues. So it's an excellent question, and that's where I think we have to be careful about.
No, the reason I ask this question is maybe, Dr. Mashkar, if you keep that thought, it's not about the fact that a technology can be used or misused, a cutting knife for cutting vegetables. Or I'm saying about, there is often we hear this all the time that India to grow must innovate, must innovate, must innovate.
So I'm saying there is almost a mantra now. But is that the unmixed blessing in the sense that surely we should look at maybe are people utilizing their existing resources well? Are they doing some mundane things like optimizing what is currently in hand? Whereas we keep saying that without innovation we cannot progress. That's the point. Not so much about the misuse. I know that in fact we'll probably talk about Chat GPT later. But I'm saying there's no other way but to innovate. Is that a mantra we should take?
Yes, I think if you take the simplest definition of innovation, to me, I simplify things as you know. Innovation is doing things differently to make a difference. That's all. So if you get into that fundamental, basically, all the answers are very clear because we have problems for mundane to the sublime. And in each case, India actually is an innovative country because what happens, scarcity and aspiration is a deadly combination. And because of our scarcity, we have to innovate. That's why the grassroots innovation comes. That's where the frugal innovation comes. I hate the word jugaad, by the way, because jugaad is doing it somehow without consideration of safety, etc., etc. So India has been innovative from that perspective. The reason we do not score very high in global innovation index is that they count something which is not covering the kind of things that are for creating a better society, better human being, giving access, and so on and so forth. So I think if you take that fundamental definition of doing it differently, I think that covers.
Harsh, can you tell us, because I found it fascinating, that uh, two examples that we discussed. One is about baggage handling, and the other is about space optimization. I think I think it would be nice to share with the audience about an example of again innovative thinking. And
Yeah, so basically, this is a project that I'd worked on quite some time ago and is now coming to life. So, I was working in Tokyo for some time, and one night I'd gone to the toilet and I realized it was really, really small. And I was wondering what I can do about it, which is when I realized, there are three things in a toilet: a commode, a sink, and a shower. All three things are on different heights for ergonomic reasons, commode being the lowest, the sink on top, and the shower on top. And I also realized that you don't use two things at the same time. So we actually stacked these three things like a cabinet, one above the other. So you can pull out what you want to use it, and push it back. That saves space by like 60%. And that's one of the products we've developed.
another one is about baggage handling.
Yeah, with a similar thought process also is when you go to an airport, you realize the slowest process or the process that causes a bottleneck is the handbag X-ray machine. And and if airports want to increase throughput, they need to increase number of X-ray machines, which means larger real estate. And one thing we did was we were able to come up with a way where we stacked X-ray machines one above the other, and so you get a much larger throughput in the same real estate. That's another of our products that we've come up with.
So these are, I think, examples where it's not only just a product but the way of doing things.
Yeah.
And my question to you is that do you think that what drives innovations is the fact that you can patent it? So without the incentive of patents or monetizing your innovation, you will not really come up with the innovation that Dr. Mashinko said. 10x more, what did he say? 10x more productive and 10x more affordable. But these things will not happen unless there is a patent protection or some monetizing incentive. How important is that?
I mean, personally for me it is, but then I've seen otherwise. A lot, I mean, hugely, right? I mean, I remember, I think it was Tesla who open sourced all their patents. And I know companies that have been doing things like that. I know in India, a lot of entrepreneurs wouldn't have existed if that was motivation for them. I mean, done brilliantly. A lot of entrepreneurs in India,
Would not have existed
if they were motivated by patents because it's not the most popular thing that
So
companies have been
your
doing.
book on experiment or innovation is not really about protecting IP.
No, we're not talking about protecting IP. That's incidental.
Dr. Bashikar, what's your view on protection of IP and innovation?
You know, I used to talk so much about patents that there was a point when people started calling me patenter rather than machine. You know that. And I've been deeply involved right from my NCL days when we changed the paradigm, not publish or perish, but patent, publish and prosper. Because we found that wealth was being created of our ideas, but not in India or by Indians abroad. That is where it all changed. Patenting or intellectual property rights have multi-dimensions, basically. There is a WHO Commission on Intellectual Property Rights, Innovation and Public Health, of which Madame Ruth Dreyfus, the former president of Switzerland, was the chairperson. I was vice chair. And the entire issue was about making drugs, therapeutics, diagnostics, vaccines available and affordable to large population, basically. And our conclusion was that it's not intellectual property rights versus the rights of the poor. Intellectual property rights and the rights of the poor. There has to be that particular balance. For example, when HIV/AIDS came in, what happened? $10,000 per year. Poor could not afford it. It was our laboratory, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, where Dr. Gujar actually created an alternative process chemistry, which brought that down from $10,000 to $300. Cipla commercialized it, bringing it even down, and millions of lives were saved. But what happened was that there was Doha Declaration, where intellectual property rights and public health were brought together for the first time, because the right of the poor to health, therefore, was actually sort of brought in. So there has to be that balance. I've written a lot about it, I've talked a lot about it, but it's an important question. How far do you go and where do you actually stop, and how do you create that balance? I would put it this way.
So I'm going to ask one last question before we invite the audience. How much of this is behavior? I mean, why are people not more innovative? Does it require Harsh Halatkar to come and tell us, hey, you know what, pizza box and this thing, there's some similarity, or there's some similarity between a microprocessor and a football team? Why are people, what's the mindset? What is that we need? Why is it that more people are not seeing this serendipitous similarities? Why are more people not innovating?
I think while two things. One, while there's been great amount of emphasis on in our country to innovate, unfortunately nobody's talking about how. How, yeah. And the second thing that I think comes in the way is because we are trained from very early on to choose subjects, to choose areas of work, and to choose industry that you belong to. And your mindset sort of sticks in those limitations. The moment you're able to move out of it and think of another industry.
Are you blaming the education system for
I'm
making
not
us
blaming-
non-innovative?
It doesn't stop you from looking at another industry. The education system may be limited, but doesn't stop you from looking. So it's up to you how much.
So since you have lived in different parts of the world, did you really feel that it makes a difference about sort of cultural, softer, social, educational environment that makes people more
No,
innovative?
actually, I think the biggest impact, like I've dedicated this book to her, but the impact of being able to do this was from my grandmother, who helped me make things from things that were completely unconnected. I couldn't, for my life, articulate it back then, and it took me all these years to just articulate that. But I think it built from there.
Okay.
This question about why don't we innovate
More.
more? I can give hours of talk on that, but let me share with you my experience just 72 hours ago. And therein lies the answer. The event was that we talk about India at 75, we must talk about India, Bharat at 75. Because Bharat resides in 70% of our Indians live in villages and 17% in slums. So therefore, ISRO had this particular idea of creating a space exhibition and innovation, basically. And that is Heritage International School, which is near, just near Pune. That is where it was inaugurated. They have called it Kalam Mashelkar Space and Innovation Lab. And there was this inauguration. Excellent artifacts. And young kids, 7th, 8th standards, neatly dressed, good English. They made presentations. It's very interesting, my questions and their answers. They actually had memorized whatever was supposed to be said. Memorized, completely memorized.
Like Gokhale, Oka.
Or Gokhale Oka. But what they were talking about, I tried to deep dive into some of that. For example, there is an exhibit where right from Big Bang to today, they have showed. And the word billion is used. So I asked that young girl, what is a billion? She couldn't answer. Then I had to tell her it is 100 crore and so on. I went ahead. I asked them about, for example, astrophysics. They were showing something. And I said, who are great astrophysicists, name some. She said Stephen Hawking, but she did not know about Jan Nadikar and Govind Swarup. Right in Pune, by the way. You go ahead like this, and what you found, in fact, one fellow had mugged it up to an extent where he got stuck at a point. And then he says, can I start from beginning? So what is happening is that learning by rote, rather than learning by doing, and learning by doing is not what teacher tells you, step one, learning by creating. And from there to learning by co-creating. Co-creating not just man and machine as we know. It is not man versus machine, with machine. That's a fundamental change. That is where innovation actually starts. And that is why in Prime Minister's National Innovation Council, in Dr. Manmohan Singh's time, we had created that Tod for Jod. That means children should be allowed to play, discover, and so on and so forth. I think that is where it starts. You can't ask a 26-year-old man, hey, from tomorrow you'll be innovative. It has to come from childhood.
Okay, so we open it up to the audience if you have any specific questions. Yeah, gentleman in the front row. Please be specific. Question.
Sure.
Yeah, it's working.
So my question is really about connecting the dots and observations, right? Because this book is about drawing parallels from things that are happening around your world. Is observation and connecting the dots a skill, and can it be learned?
I learned it, so I really believe it can be. I mean, I've learned it over time, and it's just about. It's about trying it, and it'll happen. So yeah, it absolutely can be learned. I believe I've learned it.
So you have learned it more formally, but like for people who are going to read this book, can you give us some guidance on how we can learn, just as you have learned?
I mean, from starting to draw parallels on the smallest things day to day, right? I mean, looking, actually, one of the nicest ways is at the end of every chapter, the set of questions that will actually start to make you think. And of course, at the end of the book, there's the banyan tree analysis. I'm hoping that can really help everybody.
So Harsh, you run a design thinking company. So I think, can you answer that in that context? Because your company is supposed to help us think
No,
innovatively.
I don't run a design thinking company. I run an innovation company, and we've tried distinguishing between those.
What's the difference, by the way?
Yeah. So design thinking, typically what happens is design thinking, the start point of it is research. Like, to give you an example, if you have gone out there to sort of solve the problem of people who are delivering e-commerce goods last mile, design thinking starts from the point of view of, and making that process more efficient, you go and interview 50 of those delivery boys, understand what their problems are and how you can solve them. But the solution is always in the ecosystem of the delivery boys. Uh, whereas it does not look at how can I get a product from point A to point B. So because you start from a point of assuming that the ecosystem exists and you're researching that ecosystem, which limits you to that ecosystem itself. So there's only incremental things that come out of,
Design thinking is incremental,
in my opinion, yes.
and innovation is breakthrough.
Yeah, there's disruption. I mean, we've tried defining disruption, innovation, design thinking, and behavioral economics in that order.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, the Mansi. He's our young graduate from Gokhale Institute. Yeah, it's working.
So I have a question on that. Many of students of my age are used
Speak
to...
loudly.
Yeah.
Can you come forward?
Just speak loudly so everybody hears you.
Yeah, and speak louder.
So many students...
If you don't, I'll call you on the stage. So please.
Yeah, so many students of my age are used to studying with Google, with ChatGPT or something like, and which to me a certain extent kind of hampers our thinking, because the one thing we don't know, we just Google it and get the answer. So how can you incentivize us to develop into that innovation, some thinking out of the box, because we're just getting dependent on software like this, like, and the next generation will be a little more vulnerable to this kind of. Can you please answer?
I want Harsh and Mr. Mashkalkar both to answer this question, but I want to add to what Mansi said. So as people who are faculty, by the way, Mansi, we used to be very happy because we have this very efficient anti-plagiarism software. So, students, if they submit assignments, the first thing we do is filter it through the plagiarism. If it's more than 40% or 25% threshold, it's rejected and they get a penalty and, they fail. But with ChatGPT, everybody is unique and perfect. And it's going through the plagiarism software. So that's the additional stuff what she's saying. Not only they look up Google now, they just do it very efficiently, not you, but very efficiently using ChatGPT.
So I'm hoping that when you Googled things, have you been able to go from one link to the other, to the other, to the other? It's actually a really nice journey for you to be able to draw parallels, because what you'll end up in is completely different from what you start with. So in the larger picture, I think that's a good thing. The second thing also is while Google and ChatGPT might give you answers of information, it does not give you an approach of how to think. And I think that's what the book's about. And I think that's what we should all focus on, not on knowing information, but applying it. And that I don't think will work out of a Google or a ChatGPT.
No, let me just add to that. It's a serious question and we have to really look at seriously. Again, I'm not tired of giving this particular example. Mr. Uday Gujar, who is here, he brought his grandson to me. And he was 80 years old and said, we have a problem with him because he knows everything. So I said, what is your favorite subject? He said, all subjects. Very confident. Then I said, still. Then he said, biology. And that was the COVID period. I asked him, what is the difference between bacteria and virus? Correct answer. Then I said, I heard about mutation. What is it? Perfect answer. 8-year-old. Then
His first name is Google?
Huh? Yeah, no. Listen to the whole story. And then I said, what is spike protein? He answered that. Approximately, not perfectly. Then I said, then we came to DNA, obviously. So I had my photograph with Watson, who won the Nobel Prize for finding the double helical structure. So I said, who is he? He couldn't recognize because he was old. Then I said Watson, immediately, Watson Crick winning the Nobel Prize, and the third lady who should have got it because of the X-ray diffraction pattern, etc. Then I said, who is the scientist who has got 2 Nobel Prizes? Tuck, Madame Curie, including here. Then I said, no, Linus Pauling has also got it. She said, no, first is for science, second is for physics. An 8-year-old who had not gone to school for 2 years because of COVID. Then I asked Udayji, you are not a scientist, how come? He said, we have given him access to Google. These are the new kids on the block. Now the challenge is, I remember I alerted them that he is using his brain as a storage, not as an intelligent processor. That is the difference. And that's what you tried to talk about, that the process part of it, in terms of innovating, is going to finally differentiate, you know. So I think our systems have to be designed for that, basically. We are not looking at that seriously.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book still. I was in the state to deliver. Congratulations to Harsh and Dr. Mashirka for the book. It's converging of many parallels, including Guru Shishya also, besides the points that you mentioned there. What struck to me about some of the questions that you have been having is, given the things that are happening in India, given that we are 1.4 billion people, and the stark darkness that looms ahead of us because of lack of innovation in our system, whether it is education, in the industry, or the institutions. For example, the AI, what happens in another 20, 30 years' time when making a shirt is more cheaper to make in New York, because you can do it artificial intelligence in New York, you can print it and do it, instead of doing it in Bangladesh or in India or in...
You're talking about automation.
Yes. So, a innovation, the leapfrogging innovation that's happening will benefit people there. It will actually disable countries such as ours in a big way. Same thing with truck driving. If it becomes an intelligent truck driving, what happens to millions of people? And at the age of 40 or 50, people who go to the textile mills or who drive cannot be retrained. There is no system within our...
So your question is, how do we face the...
How do you do it about it? Because I do not know how many examples of Indian context you have touched in the book about converging parallels and innovations about it. If they're all abroad, then it contains our
So
problem.
it's not so much about innovation, but it's automation, the fear of automation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an eternal optimist, and I think that's where we also sort of connect. But I understand the problem that it might generate. But I think on a larger scale, it helps every human being, it makes every human being upskill, which I think eventually will be a really big impact. But I completely understand the problem that will come up with. And that also relates to the previous question, is when we are able to apply more than work mechanically or be storage systems, it doesn't really help grow. And I think it'll push more and more people to apply, and that's precisely what the book is about, application and not, irrespective of which part of the world or country, it's just about applying your mind to two completely unrelated things. Yeah, I mean, it's bound to happen, you're absolutely right, bound to lose out things on that we do mechanically or do as a storage system. I mean, I probably growing up, I had so many phone numbers by heart, and I know none today. But it's a lost skill, me as well. So I think they're bound to happen, but it gave me that much more mind space to apply my mind somewhere else. So I think in the larger picture, it's a good thing. I don't know about, I mean, the current one, I understand the concern completely.
So I'll just take 1 minute. You know, when Rajiv Gandhi introduced computerization in banking, this is exactly the big backlash, that it's going to destroy jobs in banking and financial services. We have grown 10 times more. But
That's exactly, you summed it up. Whenever there is a new technology, there is a fear of destruction. But it's a creative destruction, because when you destroy some jobs, you create new jobs. In fact, I'll send you my paper. It is called Exponential Technology, Industry 4.0, and Future of Jobs in India. I'll send it to you. And I've articulated there how the old jobs, when they vanish, the new jobs will be created. In fact, when Mr. Javadekar was the education minister, he had come home for a cup of tea. Vaishali is sitting here, she will remember. And I gave him a list of 55 new jobs which are going to come up because of Industry 4.0 going cyber physical, not just physical. All right? So there will be new jobs, there's no fear. Your point, I liked very much, the examples. In fact, he will recollect that during lunchtime today, I said we must bring out a new book, another book, on what India has done in exponential innovation. And just to cite some examples, I can't articulate it as well as Sushil, who is sitting here. But Reliance, for example, I've been on the Reliance board for 17 years, and I've been the chairman of the Reliance Innovation Council. We had Nobel laureates and great thought leaders, including C.K. Prahlad on that. They have done experiment like nobody else, game changing. For example, they had masters, of course, refining and the rest of it, petrochemicals and so on. But they wanted to enter telecom. The consultants had told them that it should be ARPU and the average revenue per etc. They said, no, that is not the basis. We said, we look at barrels per day. How much volume throws. So why not the volume of voice that flows to Erlang? And they changed the entire basis, by the way. Oil and gas has nothing to do with telecom. Similarly, you would see that Jio has the record of getting 50 million customers within 83 days. All right? How did they do that? Not because of Mukesh's deep pockets. Innovation, innovation, and innovation. For example, when they were laying the fiber lines, the challenge. Once you dig, what is the challenge, and particularly in narrow lanes and so on and so forth. So what they did, they picked up technology from that is used in oil and natural gas industry, which is horizontal drilling, horizontal directional drilling, and sort of did it at night, so as to say, underground. And there are several parallels. In fact, on Reliance's work itself, a book can be written. I'll tell you. So it is not that. I think we have not brought them up here. In fact, that's exactly what we said in the afternoon. We'll bring that up. And I think you have motivated us to bring it sooner rather than later.
Okay, my question is a very simple one. You probably addressed it since I came late. Forgive me if you've done this. My question is very simple. Is common sense the problem with innovation? Because it imposes mental restrictions on your thinking. And he just gave an example of how nobody thought of voice throughput. They thought in terms of revenue. And when you deal with oil and you remove that constraint about what it is that you're measuring, then you get a different kind of thinking. So the question very simply is common sense the problem with innovation? Or lack of it, I should say. Or lack of innovation.
All difficult questions will be passed on to me.
So you are saying that if people don't have common sense, then you don't have innovation.
No, I'm saying if you have common sense, you're limiting innovation.
So conventional wisdom and common sense is a restriction, is an inhibitor for innovation.
Yeah, I probably don't look at common sense how you look at probably, because I think common sense will make you relate to something that's completely unrelated as well. I mean, that's what that's about. So I mean, common sense with an industry focus or with the blinders of being a part of one industry, yes, that's possible.
I think that's an excellent question. I think we should change the subtitle. This is a book about not common sense, but uncommon sense. Because when you connect the seemingly unconnected, it is uncommon sense. That's right. That's exactly. Otherwise, we get sort of bound. And you ask a very important question. What he is asking about, it's wonderful that we are given such fantastic examples, etc. How do you institutionalize it?
Yeah.
Finally, how do you integrate this into, let's say, the innovation curricula or the way of sort of doing things, or even the innovation thinking process, basically. And I think this has to get sort of integrated at that level, basically. Because what has happened is that this has existed. People have understood the power of serendipity. Prakash, before you came, I was talking about how I got into this because of my lectures on serendipity. And then I talked about organized serendipity. In terms of how you can make organizations actually create accidents and then learn from them. Because if you are too organized, not living an inch here, you can't. That free volume, as we have learned in chemical engineering, is very important. Flexibility, freedom to fail, to take risks, etc., becomes very, very important. And one of the points we have made, the last chapter actually, is precisely the answer to your questions, Amu, in terms of what are the 10 different things that organizations have to do in order to sort of promote it. That answer is very much there, because without that, the book would be just story of interesting, entertaining story. No, there is something more profound in this. I'm glad you asked that question.
Maybe one last, yeah. Two questions, last two questions. Oh, there's also three. Okay, yeah.
It's not a question, but a anecdote. My mother's father was a farmer, and in his farm he used to have four different crops: leafy vegetables, flowers, grains, and fruits. And he had 4 or 5 farms. I asked him, why don't you specialize one farm for one product? It will be easier to manage. He said, no, insects of one farm, one product, eat the insects of the other one. So I don't use any pesticide. This is the wisdom of 100 years ago. And I think we lost that wisdom. With him, we have lost that which product should be positioned next to what. So in India, many such instances have happened, especially in the agricultural field and medicinal field, which were there but which have now gone. I think there is need for us to dig deeper into that and find out what they were and why. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to give you some parallel of what I have seen in industry, because I have spent a lot of time in the corporate world. See, a combination of two things is required. What you have mentioned, and is absolutely the right thing to do, and what Dr. Michel has been talking about, disruptive innovation, quantum improvements, not the steady improvement or continuous improvement. But I'll give you an example, and this is something which I have experienced. We had two different kind of improvement or suggestion schemes. One is on the Western philosophy, where you give in fact, the person who makes a suggestion which gives a huge improvement, he gets a percentage of that as an incentive. It is a well-known, well-established thing, British, American, and then we used to follow it also in India. But the other side of the spectrum was the Japanese system, which is the Kaizen system. Okay, what does that do? That says, forget about, first of all, big rewards, forget about big improvements, talk about the smallest seed stage improvements. Now, what it does is, it creates an atmosphere of innovative people, because they're looking at not those big things, they're looking at those small improvements which can make a difference. Okay. Now, when everyone in the organization starts doing that, you will find that the receptivity for those mega improvements improves enormously. So what I want to stress here is, whereas this is absolutely crucial, I'm not at all demeaning any of things what you said, but unless it is done with a, like Dr. Ranade asked, why are we not innovating? We have to create an atmosphere which accepts innovation. And for that reason, the small improvements are extremely crucial. So both these things are necessary. That's all I wanted to know.
Absolutely right. Let me just say that it's not the question of this or that. It is this and that. Let me give you a personal example. As I said, I've been the chairman of Reliance Innovation Council, and we are all Nobel laureates and all those sorts of people. If you look at the Reliance programs, we created what is called as Mission Kurukshetra. The interesting part of Mission Kurukshetra was after the 2008 meltdown, Mukesh has this habit of not turning a single lamp. He will turn the switch off, so as to say. And we created a program where we said we'll get the entire organization involved, get them aligned. And that would be for war on waste, not the waste, WAST, extreme efficiency and value maximization in everything that they do. And we even created award systems, by the way. We took Mahabharata characters just to give some sort of signals that it is a war between Kaurava and Pandava, that is bad and good, that is between inhibition and innovation and so on. And you can see people had said that Reliance is a top-down organization, nothing will happen. You should have seen the entire, it was like boiling of an ocean. Everybody is sort of contributing. But while we were doing that, we did also something else. What was that? After the Innovation Council meeting, I used to have a meet, not necessarily there, but after Board of Directors meeting, either before or after, occasion I will have one-on-one, basically, not talking about board agenda, but about future. And I remember he's talking about, Doc, we must leapfrog. And that is where I said, why does the frog leap? Because he's afraid of the predator, jumps a few feet. We must pole vault, the size of the pole. That is the inspiration for leapfrogging to pole vaulting. But then what we did actually was to create a program called Beyonders. Beyonders, and Sushil can talk about it better because he managed it from Reliance Innovation Leadership Center. We picked up 25, 30 people who were capable of thinking beyond the realms of possibilities, basically, out of 3.5 lakh people. And their job was making impossible possible. And they existed, coexisted. Here was Beyonder, which was going the realms of possibilities, like what we did in 2017. We were 156 in out of 231 nations in mobile data consumption. We did not leapfrog to 100. We pole vaulted to number 1. And 4 rupees per GB and voice free. You know the affordable excellence model that we created. That was pole vaulting. That was not incremental. But other things that we talked about were all incremental, basically, bringing small benefits, 25 crore, 50 crore, 10 crore, or what have you. Incidentally, the awards that we created were also interesting. They were named after the characters. Like there was a Karna Award. Karna manje Danshur, correct? So if there is a person who is in, let's say, manufacturing and gives a great idea in R&D, then he's not thinking about himself. Or, for example, in marketing, there were awards that were created and the entire ecosystem actually basically changed. It is possible. So my answer would be, we require both and a balance.
So I think we are going to run out of time. One innovation that we badly need is how to do what he says 10x. From 1 minute, how to produce 10 minutes. So the one thing that we have not been able to exponentially increase is time. So I think we'll have to now wrap up. If there are any closing, quick 1 or 2 sentences you want to say before I do some concluding?
No, I think.
I'm really thankful for being here in this opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for blessing Harsh. This is the big journey of his life. These are his first steps in the long journey. So this event is not about the book release. He's a fantastic young boy with great future, and you have all blessed him. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, I just closing words is that when you talk about innovation, Exprovement, and all, you think about things like innovative products like this. I know that Mr. Mashelkar doesn't like the word jugad, but out of jugad, it lives for some time, then it becomes obsolete. For example, the great Indian jugad of the missed call. I don't know, Harsh, whether you are in it. The missed call was a necessity because the rates were so high that you saved money by the missed call. Yeah, so exactly. So then the missed call is now is history. Similarly, the jugaad of using the top-loading washing machines to make lassi, industrial scale lassi or something. All those are old stories and no longer. Nowadays, I think I don't know. Mansi will corroborate. This is used for everything but making a phone call. So all the young people have it on only on silent. So if actually somebody calls, then maybe somebody has died. Otherwise, you never use it for phone call. Everything else. so that's how it goes. I mean, anyway, I'm very happy and privileged that I was part of this book launch, and it's got all these delightful stories which connect all kinds of things. We didn't talk about milk and silk and things like that. But importantly, that last chapter tries to bring everything in a conceptual framework, the banyan tree framework. So, strongly recommend it. And again, congratulate the authors and we'll wrap up. Thank you.
Hello. You can take this.
It's not working. It's okay. Yeah. So I was saying a fascinating discussion around a fascinating book. And Dr. Mashelkar, as you say, all good things must not come to an end, but they should be repeated. So we want many more discussions on various aspects of this book, especially around the innovation centers in Pune, and of course around the next book that you are planning. Dr. Ranade, I also picked up the very same thought that you picked up. Exponential improvement is not 10% improvement, but 10x percent improvement. And the other important point that Dr. Mashelkar made is convex lens leadership, which is what a country like India, multi-religious, multicultural, multi-ethnic society like ours needs. Harsh, thank you very much for these fascinating examples of Exprovement, pizza box to cancer detection, barber and oil slick control, and bubble wrap, and IBM computers. Innovation and social innovation is extremely important for us at PIC. And another of Dr. Mashelkar's memorable phrases is more from less for more, which really captures the Gandhian philosophy. Uh, Thank you very much for your presence. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much, Dr. Ranade, for this beautiful auditorium and for chairing this session. And with this, I announce the end of this program. Thank you very much.